All right. How's everybody doing? So we got a lot to talk about. We got some breaking news as well. Let's get straight to it. You guys get the notification? I tried my best to send out the bat signal. Before we get started, again, I hate these YouTuber cliches. Please hit the like button. We need it, right? Because it's not a cooking show, it's a politics show. And given the title, especially, they're gonna screw with the algorithm. So please hit the like button because we have to fight the algorithm. You know the thing. I'm not gonna go through it. So thank you, by the way. You're very kind. So let's get to this, man. All right. Just making sure we're good. I'm a bit off to the side. Give me a second over here. Hold on. This damn table. All right, here we go. There, that's better. Okay. Right, so there's been an incident. Yes. Basically, this started about an hour and a half ago. I'll give you the exact time of the attack in a second. Basically, you had reports of sirens going off near this nuclear facility in occupied Palestine, right? We're not going to call it Israel. So I'll show you this over here from the Jerusalem Post, okay? They said reports of sirens in southern occupied Palestine and foreign media reports of those sirens being near Dimona, okay? So you have to understand something. Dimona is a region where you have this nuclear facility, okay? And I mean, obviously the timing of it is interesting. We'll cover that in a second, but you had reports in Israeli media, right, in occupied Palestine about this, and I'll show you a bit over here from the videos that were circulating on social media, right? So I did a whole thread when it was breaking, and I was posting about it on Twitter. So you should definitely follow there if you're not already. Take a look. So, right, so. So here's some of the footage. There's no sound. All right, so it's just looping there. And another thing, you also had reports of an explosion, and it was so loud that people could hear it in Jerusalem. Okay, here, I'm going to play for you. Okay, so I'm not sure. You know, we're not sure. It's still unconfirmed whether that was you know, a rocket being intercepted or just a jet breaking the sound barrier. Regardless, I'm just giving you what was reported. Okay, then you know, up until this point, we didn't know what was going on. So we just heard, okay, there's sirens going off near this nuclear facility. And all of a sudden you had reports from Sana, from the Syrian Arab news agency, that the Syrian air defense systems were activated and they were confronting Israeli warplanes in, in the Damascus countryside. Let me show you on the map, maybe you can see over here. Okay, so we're talking about over here in eastern countryside of Damascus, okay? So this is a regular occurrence, right? Israel bombing Syria practically every week. But this happened right at the same time. And then a military source told Sana that Israel had basically attacked Syria at 1:38 a.m., okay? And that they had responded with surface-to-air missiles. And afterwards, hold on, I'm going to pull it up for you so you can see. It's in Arabic, but still I'm translating. So they had confronted the Israeli forces with the missiles, and they sustained, I think, four wounded soldiers. They had 4 wounded soldiers and some material damage, some material losses. That's basically the summary. And afterwards, okay, if you look at what they were saying in the Times of Israel, all right, so look what they say here, right? They're saying in response to the launch of the surface-to-air missile, Israeli jets conducted a second round of airstrikes in Syria, bombing the battery that fired the projectile, as well as other air defense systems. Okay, this is according to the Israeli occupation forces. And they also posted this on Twitter. They had posted on Twitter that, a surface-to-air missile was fired from Syria into Negev, and that they had struck the battery. Okay, so this is where it's coming from. Now, by the way, here's some more footage of them attacking Damascus. Watch your ears. Okay, so just going back to the times of Israel, all right? Look what they're saying here. This is hilarious, honestly. Okay? They're saying that, this according to their spokesperson, that the military did not believe this was a deliberate attack on their nuclear facility. Okay? So they're saying that the target was not the nuclear facility. What they're saying is that apparently this surface-to-air missile that was launched by Syria against the Israeli jets, it followed an Israeli jet all the way back to the nuclear facility, which is 400 kilometers away. What? Let me show you on the map, okay? And our friend over here, Lebanese News and Updates, took the time to calculate the distance with Google Maps. Take a look, all right? So, we're talking about Dore over here, and all the way to the nuclear facility. I mean, okay, that's excuse me, that's 200 kilometers. I'm confused. I'm thinking about the SAM. So you have to consider that the missile they're saying was fired by Syria. All right, this is it's a SA-5. Okay, so the SA-5, that's part of the S-200 system. So the Russians, they have these surface-to-air missiles. They're you fire them from a battery and it chases it down a plane, right? They have the S-200, S-300, S-400 is their latest version. The S-200 is quite old, right? And the Israelis always make fun of the Syrians as having old Soviet equipment, right? Well, how on God's earth did this missile, the SAM, that was fired by Syria, go all the way to this nuclear facility over there? Isn't that a bit weird? Like, something is off with this story. I mean, either their defense systems are so crap that this SAM was traveling 200 kilometers uninhibited all the way. Okay, here you go. Here's Dimona, right? And there's the Negev Nuclear Research Center. Okay, so this missile, you're telling me, traveled all the way from here. This occupied Golan Heights. Here's Syria. It traveled all the way here and nothing stopped it? Really? That's incredible. That is really incredible. I don't know what to say about that. I mean, either they're lying, either they're flat out lying, or they're, something is up. Someone's getting fired. Someone is getting fired in in their air defense systems today. Someone's getting fired. But what is really funny to me is how they just overtly admit, like, no. The Syrians were not targeting our nuclear facility, right? It says the IDF spokesman stressed that the target was not the nuclear facility. And they just overtly admit that, this was just like a regular bombing of the Golan Heights, like Israel does every week. Like, in order to save themselves embarrassment, they just say that they just own up to their illegal bombings, which they carry out every week, right? Every single week, virtually every single week. They go and they bomb the Golan Heights, they bomb Qanitra, they bomb Damascus countryside, and they say, oh, we're attacking Iranian targets, whatever that means, right? And they never own up to it, right? I think on some occasions they've admitted that they've done hundreds of them. It's probably in the thousands now if you consider the last 10 years, right? So there's that. But now they just overtly admit it, like, no, this was a regular bombing, and a stray missile just followed us all the way back. Whatever. That's interesting, and you obviously know why this is so sensitive, right? You know why this is sensitive because just a week ago, a little over a week ago, on April 11th, right? You had Israel attack Iran's nuclear facility in Natanz. And it's so interesting seeing how they're reporting it here, right? Because if you go and you read the headlines in the international press about Natanz, about Iran, They say Iran blames Israel, even though it's Israeli media who's saying the Mossad attacked Iran's nuclear facility. Israeli media are saying that, not Iran. And they say that in all of their articles, BBC, CNN, New York Times, you name it. Actually, the New York Times has its own sources, two unnamed U.S. intelligence officials telling it, yeah, Mossad did this. And they still say Iran is blaming Israel. What? You just reported that it's Israel. Anyway, it's just, and now it's just, they're just straight up say in the titles, right, in the headlines, no, Syrian strike near Israeli nuclear facility. Even though, according to the Israelis themselves, this was a stray missile, right? It just managed to travel all the way uninhibited. How incredible, right? You know, the Israelis always show off like, oh, we have, the Iron Dome, and we're always shooting down rockets fired from Gaza and hot air balloons. Watch out, right? We'll bomb you for that. And, we're so capable, right? We're so advanced. And the Syrians, they have these old, good for nothing Soviet systems. Wow. If you can't protect a nuclear facility, I mean, and you're claiming you're the best, I mean, that's a bit weird. I don't know. So, I mean, you guys tell me, what do you think? You think they're bullshitting us? Or do you think that they just can't handle it? Because maybe their Iron Dome, maybe their conventional air defense systems, they're good for, again, I think Lebanese news updates made this point that they're good against, cheap rockets made in Gaza because they don't have the means. They're clandestine made rockets, but they're no good against, conventional systems. Now, again, that's if you go and you enter some, military forum where they discuss, conventional weapon systems and surface-to-air missiles and all, you will never finish debating in there. Okay, good luck to you. Right? Everyone has an opinion on that, but I don't know what to make of this. Honestly, I think that they're either lying or this is just extremely embarrassing. And if this is coming just barely a week after Israel attacked a nuclear facility in Iran, I mean, if that isn't a sign from God, I don't know what is. If that is not karma, I don't know. I don't know what is. Again, it's not the same thing. Nothing was damaged, right? So let's be clear. Nothing was damaged. I mean, as far as we know, they could be lying. I don't know if they're lying. I'm not saying they are. But as far as we know, nothing is damaged, right? No one is injured at that nuclear facility, right? But nonetheless, I mean, the timing of it, it's definitely interesting. Again, if that's not a sign from God, I don't know what is, man. So let me just go back over here to this. Hold on. Right. So if you read the article from Times of Israel, they're still saying here that, though uncommon, Syrian surface-to-air missiles fired at Israeli fighter jets have in the past caused damage and triggered sirens as they fall back to earth. Though uncommon, right? Because Israel is so superior. In 2019, an SA-5 missile that had been fired at an Israeli aircraft landed in northern Cyprus, causing an explosion and a large fire in a village there, right? So, I mean, if their point is that these things are so, they're relics of the Cold War, well, I'm not going to argue with that. They are kind of relics of the Cold War. But, I don't know how that accounts for what happened today. Huh? And here they're saying that two landed in Jordan, right, in 2017. So that's about it. That's all there is in the article. So they're just saying that, okay, yeah, we did bomb Syria. We did go and bomb it illegally. But, there was just a stray missile that followed us all the way back. Okay, so that's all we have for now, right? As far as I can tell from both sides, those are the hostilities, and that's ended for now. Now, obviously, I think we should all be happy that it didn't turn into something bigger, right? Because then Israel will get their asses handed to them, right? Let's be very clear with each other on something, okay? Because, the Israelis, yes, they are subsidized $3.8 billion a year by the U.S. military. Oh, well, sorry, by the U.S. for their military, right? They receive military aid to the tune of $3.8 billion, and among other things. And of course, they have the full backing of NATO, right? They have the full backing of the Western world. When push comes to shove, though, that doesn't account for much. You look at 2006, right? From July till mid-July to mid-August, it was about 1 month, 33 days, right? When they had Hezbollah fighting against the Israeli occupation forces. They kicked their asses. And that's not even you have to take in consideration Hezbollah is not even in possession of a navy or an air force like they are, and all of this American aid and American equipment, and they took on a conventional army, right? So, they want to posture here and say that, oh, this is just an accident. I don't know. I'm not so sure about that. You feel me? If a stray missile is following them 200 kilometers to a nuclear site, what does that say? And you can be sure there are people shitting their pants about this, right? It's actually funny because if you go and you read the comments on Facebook, on Twitter, wherever, it was like IDF or JPost or something, you have all the people who are dismayed, right? Last week they were clapping after attacking Natanz, and now all of a sudden they seem to be, they seem to be in shock. All these sad reacts on Facebook. Oh my God. Yo. Eh oui. C'est comme ça, hein? C'est comme ça. In any case, that's about it for now. Right? I'm not going to say anything else because that's all we have. So, and also I published, we've already done several videos on the Natanz incident, but yesterday I published the latest article on that attack at Natanz. It's on Substack. Go read it. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. It's RichardMedhurst.substack.com. Okay. So there you go. And I'll just, I should have added that perhaps at the end of the video, but Israel in the past has attacked Iraq, has attacked Syria in the name, allegedly, to blow up their nuclear reactors, right? They said, oh, look, Syria is building a nuclear weapons program based on what intelligence? I don't know. They just make it up as they go along. So now they're attacking Iran since, the last decade, since 2007, 2008. They started with Stuxnet, and then the scientists assassinating all the nuclear scientists. And then again, I think they attacked Natanz in 2012. They tried to cut the power, similarly to what they just did now. There was an explosion last year at Natanz. Again, what we had last week. I mean, they just allow themselves to just walk into other countries and just blow shit up and commit nuclear terrorism. It's crazy, right? They think that they're the policemen of the region, right? And another fun fact that I'll leave you with, guess who gave Iran their first nuclear reactor? Guess who pushed Iran into starting a nuclear program? United States. Yes? Because as you recall, in 1953, they took out Mossadegh. They had a coup because he nationalized the oil. So Britain, the MI6 and the CIA, they couped him. They got rid of him and they installed the Shah. And they wanted him to have a nuclear program, right? Now, again, there's an interview where he's speaking French. Là, il parle français. Et puis, he talks about the fact, like, why is it okay for you guys to have nuclear weapons and we can't, right? So he seems to be leaning towards the idea. Again, I don't think that was very developed, but the point is that right now, the West doesn't even want Iran to have a civilian nuclear program. That's what it's all about. It's not about weapons program. They don't have a weapons program. That's just propaganda, right? If they had one, we would all know. So they don't even want Iran to have a civilian nuclear program. That's like punishment, right? After the revolution, because they got rid of their oil puppet and they became independent, right? And if there's nothing more that the West hates than an independent country that has resources. There's nothing that they hate more, right? Nothing. So anyway, you guys have been very kind. Give me a second over here. All right, I see a couple of you already signed up on the Substack. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. So yeah, I'll get to all of your super chats at the end. All right. You know, let's cover the topics that we have. Let's cover the topics that we have, and then I'll read all of your super chats when we're at the end. Yo, speaking of weapons of mass destruction, look at this shit. All right. Speaking of weapons of mass destruction, would you believe the nerve of these people? Look at this. I couldn't believe this when I saw this. So George W. Bush said he's troubled by the capacity of people to spread all kinds of untruth. Motherfucker. You know, when I saw that tweet, when I saw this headline and I read this, all right, I just I spent a whole day just like staring at that. You know, I talk for a living and I didn't know what to say to that because I was so outraged. I'm speechless. He's talking about lies. I don't know any other president. I don't know any other administration that has lied that much. You remember how under Trump, all these newspapers and outlets, they came out with like, oh, now all of a sudden they care about fact checking, right? Not after Iraq. No, now after Trump. You're like, what, you weren't doing journalism before? Nah, they still ain't. And, you know, they were counting all of the lies that Trump had told. You remember that? Where was that when Bush was president, right? He lied about, here's the most obvious one, the weapons of mass destruction, right? He got Colin Powell to go to the United Nations Security Council, and he gave this presentation, like, what was it, like an hour and a half? And he held up this stupid, look at that, what is that, washing detergent? He claimed like, oh my God, these are the chemical and biological weapons that Iraq has the capacity to produce. And, you know, he had these like cartoon trucks. I'm not kidding, like cartoon trucks, right? Hold on, I'm gonna Google this for you, man. Look, he said that they can oh my God, this is just Bing being Bing. I can't believe this. Look. Yeah, he had look at this. Some guy went and drew up these stupid trucks and said, "Oh my God, Saddam can build these, and he can, you know, produce biological and chemical weapons on the fly." And it's completely made up. This is completely made up. Garbage. I mean, who modeled this? Honestly, they started a war over cartoon drawings, and then of course, you know, they lied about the CIA torture. You remember that? You remember that? I mean, of course, the CIA is, you know, a government in of itself, but no, the Bush regime, Cheney, all of them, they covered this up. And the Democrats too, Pelosi knew. She knew about the WMDs as well. All of this. They lied through their goddamn teeth, you know. And then George Bush, he comes and lands his plane on an aircraft carrier 2 months after the invasion of Iraq. So like May 2003, right? And he says, mission accomplished. And there's this like stupid banner behind him. Dude, it's 2021. Iraq is still occupied. Iraq is still occupied by US troops in 2021. What mission did you accomplish? They hadn't even gotten to the point where they were admitting there are no weapons of mass destruction. That took them a few months, right? Even in June of May 2000, even in June of 2003, you still had reporters at the Washington Post and New York Times still saying, look, they're there. We just haven't found them yet because Saddam is so sneaky. He hid them really well. And they hadn't found Saddam either. Saddam, they found him in December, right? So I don't know what this mission accomplished was. But regardless, he lied about that as well, right? And I mean, just the fact that this guy started, you know, he started the presidential surveillance program the day of 9/11, right? Dick Cheney gets his lawyer, David Addington, to come and draw this up. And that becomes the PRISM program, the NSA surveillance program, right? That's the precursor to it, the presidential surveillance program. They lied through their teeth. They conjured this whole war on terror, right? And if you go and you read the AUMF, the authorization for the use of military force, it doesn't even say Al-Qaeda there. It doesn't say Taliban. It doesn't say Afghanistan. I mean, it would still be wrong because it's also lies. No, it's just whoever attacked the United States on 9/11, we're going to go after them, right? And then they put all these people in Guantanamo Bay. They would go and kidnap people all over the world, innocent men. And then they would torture them. and they would take them all the way to Guantanamo Bay and keep them there, and they would lie about them being terrorists, right? I don't know a bigger liar than George Bush. I don't know a bigger liar than this man or his administration. They are really scum of the earth. So look at this, right? He says this on the Today Show, right? He says, what's really troubling is how much misinformation there is and the capacity of people to spread all kinds of untruth. I don't know what we're going to do about that. I know what I'm going to do about it. I'm not on Twitter, Facebook, any of that stuff. Oh yeah, because like Colin Powell, he tweeted that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, right? He tweeted about it, and then he just got the United States involved in a never-ending war, right? The dangers of Twitter. Oh my God! Thank God that George Bush has sacrificed his freedoms for us, and he's not going to go on Twitter, right? Thank God for that. Thank God for that. Because you never know what you'll find on Twitter, man. Maybe some yellow cake. So then he talks about the riot on January 6th, the Capitol riot, and he says it made him feel ill. Okay? Can you believe that? So this guy who destroyed Iraq, who destroyed Afghanistan, who destroyed the entirety of the Middle East, just letting creating the Department of Homeland Security, starting this war on terror. I mean, he has the nerve here to come and say that he feels ill about violence. You have a problem with violence now? How do you think Iraqis feel with your tanks marching, rolling through their streets and your soldiers marching through their towns and their cities? You think they don't feel ill? No? Seeing people at Abu Ghraib tortured, I definitely felt ill, right? I mean, physically ill reading about the Mahmoudiyya massacre, Haditha massacre, the Nisour Square massacre, seeing those pictures from Abu Ghraib, the rape, the abuse, the electrocution, the torture. Yeah, I felt ill seeing that, right? So, you want to come here and say that you have some kind of standards now, Mr. George Bush. You have standards now, and you're appalled by violence. Really, I didn't see any of that language after Abu Ghraib, after what you did. I didn't hear you say that you felt ill. Neocon scum. That's what he is. Neocon scum. They all are. And so I'm just going to play this clip. Please forgive me for putting this monster in your face. I'm not going to play the whole thing. It's too long. But just look at his goddamn face. I cannot stand him. He really deserves a shoe.
I think we should begin with what is in the news today.
Sure,
there are American cities boarding up. There are schools that are closing. Everyone's awaiting the Derek Chauvin verdict. And I was reading back to what you said after George Floyd died, and it struck me. You said, Laura and I are anguished over the brutal suffocation of George Floyd, disturbed by injustice and fear that will suffocate our country. And then I was just thinking about this moment, this verdict. I mean, what do you think will be the impact on the racial reckoning in this country?
I think the first thing is, Hoda, is that people know that the trial has been conducted fairly and that rule of law reigns supreme in our judiciary. We'll see what a jury of his peers says. I think a lot of people have already made up their mind what the verdict ought to be.
This guy's talking about the rule of law. He's talking about the rule of law. Do you know how much unconstitutional shit this guy has done? Literally, his entire presidency is just one unconstitutional thing after the other, right? The presidential surveillance program, this mass surveillance crap. Didn't even tell Congress about it. I'm sure some of them knew. I'm 100% sure some of them knew, right? That was illegal. It's still illegal. They legalized what was illegal afterwards. They waited a bit until they actually got it through Congress. And he's talking about the rule of law now. You may remember, since we're talking about an insurrection, some of you might remember, rumor has it that George Bush himself stole an election. You remember Florida? That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
All I can tell you is that if the trial is not conducted fairly, there is an appeal process. One of the things that we learned after the storming of the Capitol was our institutions held. And one of the institutions that's really important for the confidence of the American people is a fair judicial system. And I think that's what's playing out on our TVs right now.
I do want to talk about the Capitol. We'll talk about that in just a second.
A fair judicial system meant, do you know how hard George Bush and Dick Cheney tried to make sure that people held in Guantanamo Bay were not given due process? This was a real battle. Like, they would not budge on this. They're saying that there's these people that are, some of them are completely innocent. They're not terrorists, and they knew they're not terrorists. They're saying, no, they have no habeas corpus rights. We're not going to give them due process. We don't have to try them in an open court. No rights. No rights. Zero. None. And he's talking about fair trials. Have people lost their minds? How is this guy still on fucking television? How is this guy on television? He should be in the fucking hay. I don't know what to say, man. So sometimes you can't put it into words, right? Sometimes you can't put it into words, and especially with George Bush, I think this should sum it up pretty nicely, right? That this is all that he deserves, a fucking shoe, right? Neocon scum. Neocon scum. That's what he is. So I'm not going to indulge him anymore. We're not going to continue the rest of that clip. It's garbage. I just hate how people rehabilitate this guy, right? They want to come here and convince you that Trump is the worst president in modern history. Yeah, Trump is a piece of crap, but George Bush is like a behemoth. I mean, there's no comparison. You know they're bullshitting because, how can you just omit that? How can you act like his presidency didn't happen? You remember how much they talk about ICE, right? Who created ICE? That's George Bush. Department of Homeland Security? That's George Bush. I mean, the CIA already had torture programs, but he made new ones. Right? Tax cuts, that's George Bush. All these wars, the war on terror, this AOF in 2001 that they've used to bomb 19 different countries, is George Bush. Again, I told you already multiple times, mass surveillance, George Bush. And you want to come here and tell me that Trump is worse than that? No, they're all a continuation of Trump. Obama, Trump, Biden. They're just a continuation of Bush, right? Now, of course, there's some people who say, oh no, they're all a continuation of Reagan. Yes, you have elements of previous administrations that are always there. And Bush is one of those administrations where it's like a milestone of crap, of evil. And, given that you have a one-party system, there's no difference between Democrats and Republicans. They just continue what he did, right? They just expand it, they grow it, they maintain it. They're all a continuation of what he started. God, I hate how they try and rehabilitate him. It's really heinous. It's truly heinous. And then you have this thing with Ellen as well, right? And she comes on and puts a picture of the Abu Ghraib. I can't stand them. I really can't. Anyway, so I'm just gonna. Oh, I'm gonna close this out. All right. Again, I see all your donations. I'm very grateful. I'll get to them at the end. If you have questions or whatever, just shoot. I'm gonna keep going with the news. All right. So, give me 1 second. 1 second, boy. Be patient. Damn you, you dastardly rascal. Okay. So. George Floyd. So you remember what happened to George Floyd? Just about we're almost at the 1 year anniversary now, and he was killed by Derek Chauvin. So that is extremely upsetting. He put his knee on George Floyd's neck. And there were 3 other cops with him just standing around. And, you know, you remember it. I mean, how could you not? And then, of course, you had these protests that erupted because of just how he was brutally killed in the street like that. All right. He's already in handcuffs. He's laying on the ground and they just choked him to death for 8 minutes. He had his knee on his neck. So we finally have a verdict now. Right. So I'm going to play you the video of the judge reading out the verdict for Derek Chauvin.
Members of the jury, I will now read the verdicts as they will appear in the permanent records of the 4th Judicial District. State of Minnesota, County of Hennepin, District Court, 4th Judicial District. State of Minnesota Plaintiff versus Derek Michael Chauvin, Defendant. Verdict, Count 1. Court file number 27, CR 20-12646. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to Count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:44 p.m. Signed, juror foreperson, juror number 19. Same caption, verdict count 2. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 2, third-degree murder, perpetrating an eminently dangerous act, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:45 p.m. Signed by jury foreperson, juror number 19. Same caption, verdict count 3. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 3, second-degree manslaughter, culpable negligence, creating an unreasonable risk, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:45 p.m. Jury foreperson 019.
Right. So he's been found guilty of all 3 charges. And, you know, he could face up to 75 years in prison, right? So they've given the verdict now, but they haven't actually sentenced him yet. So that's yet to come. Now, you know, I want to show you some of the reactions to the sentencing, notably from President Biden and Kamala Harris. Okay, so let's take a look at that.
A measure of justice isn't the same as equal justice. This verdict brings us a step closer, and the fact is, we still have work to do. We still must reform the system. Last summer, together with Senator Cory Booker and Representative Karen Bass, I introduced the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. This bill would hold law enforcement accountable and help build trust between law enforcement and our communities. This bill is part of George Floyd's legacy. The President and I will continue to urge the Senate to pass this legislation, not as a panacea for every problem, but as a start. This work is long overdue. America has a long history of systemic racism. Black Americans, and Black men in particular, have been treated throughout the course of our history as less than human. Black men are fathers and brothers and sons and uncles and grandfathers and friends and neighbors. Their lives must be valued in our education system, in our healthcare system, in our housing system, in our economic system, in our criminal justice system, in our nation. Full stop.
Okay, so, I mean, I think you already know what I'm going to say. Do you want me to play Joe Biden as well? You want to hear what he said? Yalla, I'm going to play it.
Today, a jury in Minnesota found former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin guilty on all counts in the murder of George Floyd last May. It was a murder in the full light of day and to rip the blinders off for the whole world to see. The systemic racism the Vice President just referred to. The systemic racism is a stain on our nation's soul. The knee on the neck of justice for Black Americans. Profound fear and trauma. The pain, the exhaustion that Black and brown Americans experience every single day. Today's verdict is a step forward. I just spoke with the governor of Minnesota, who thanked me for the close work with his team. I also spoke with George Floyd's family again. A remarkable family of extraordinary courage. Nothing can ever bring their brother, their father back. But this can be a giant step forward in the march toward justice in America. The guilty verdict does not bring back George. But through the family's pain, they're finding purpose. So George's legacy will not be just about his death, but about what we must do in his memory. I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
What are you doing? What is wrong with this guy? Look, dude, if you had no clue who Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were, I would understand why you would think, oh wow, these are very nice people. They sound very serious. Yeah, that's great that they're talking about, you know, criminal justice reform and fixing racial inequality. The problem is that Joe Biden wrote the 1994 crime bill, right? He's a huge proponent of the war on drugs, right? Which has led to, I mean, devastating foreign policy, right? But also lots of money for the prison industrial complex, right? Oh, they love him. They love him. The 3 strikes, the harsher sentencing in the crime bill, you know, throwing people's lives away. I mean, this guy, he's turned the justice system that he talks about into a cash cow for private prisons. That's what he's done. And of course, he's catered to tons of other industries. But we're gonna stay focused on this for now. And Kamala Harris, I mean, she's a cop. She's a cop, right? The top cop, San Francisco. And you want me, you know, she dude, she made sure that someone who is, you know, effectively exonerated by the evidence, yes, she wanted to keep him on death row, man. She wanted to keep Black men in jail so they could be used as, you know, modern slaves. You know, in the United States, prisons rent out their prisoners. They use them as cheap labor. We covered this, right? You had, for example, you know, someone will go on strike, workers will go on strike, and then a company will come and just use prisoners and pay them like a few cents a day. It's akin to modern slavery. It's what it is. And she's fine with that. These 2 people, right? Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, I'm going to fucking lose it. Like, I'm so angry with this shit. They want to stand here after spending 40 years in government, just, you know, creating a slave labor and creating money for their prison industrial complex. And they want to come here and pretend like they care about justice. They don't give a shit. They don't give a shit. What is this platitude salad? It gets worse, man. It gets worse. You know, I've been saving this for the end because if you thought this was bad enough, I mean, just take a look, man, at this video. I'm going to lose my shit, honestly. So this is, again, after the verdict, you got Nancy Pelosi standing in front of the Congressional Black Caucus. Listen to her. Listen to what she says.
Thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice, for being there to call out to your mom. How heartbreaking was that? Call out for your mom. I can't breathe. But because of you, and because of thousands, millions of people around the world who came out for justice, your name will always be synonymous with justice. Thank you, George.
What is wrong with you? I've watched this like 5 times already, and I can't believe it's real. Look at how she's mocking him. Dude, c'est pas possible cette merde. George Floyd did not sacrifice himself. He was murdered. You know, a sacrifice is voluntary. You volunteer to sacrifice yourself. You jump on a grenade or something. I don't know. George Floyd was killed in the street. He was choked to death. That's not a sacrifice. He was murdered. You're talking after the verdict where Chauvin is convicted for what? For murder and manslaughter. And then she's mocking him for crying out for his mother and that he can't breathe. What? How sick? How sick is Pelosi? What is wrong with this woman? What is that? What is this? And no one says anything. No one says a word. You know, last year when they started getting on their knees and they put on this like kente cloth, right? And they made a photo op out of it. Do you remember that? And Pelosi was right in the front and she's wearing the kente cloth and she's like kneeling like that. And they did a minute of silence for George Floyd. This is worse. Like I wasn't, you know, I was already like that. Well, you know, you're just doing that as a photo op. You don't actually care. And no, this is worse. They still managed to top that and insult this guy's memory even more, right? Like he shouldn't have to be dead for you to reform the justice system, because that's what she's saying. Like, oh, he sacrificed himself for justice. Bitch, you are a fucking legislator. You're at the head of the Democratic Party. How many people have to die before you wake up? Are you saying he sacrificed himself for you? What are you saying? What does that mean? She's lost the plot. She's lost the plot, and I know that she's lying, and I know that she's disingenuous, because this woman, just like Joe Biden, just like Kamala Harris, they have spent their whole careers, man, their entire careers in Washington, D.C., looking the other way at the, you know, in regards to the prison industrial complex, looking the other way when it comes to torture, the CIA torturing people, looking the other way when it comes to police brutality. Remember, Black Lives Matter started under Obama. It's nothing new. Racism is nothing new. Police brutality, state violence is nothing new. What have they been doing for the last decades? I mean, if you're going to talk about I can't breathe, because she invoked that phrase, that's not just George Floyd who said that. I specifically remember Eric Gardner saying that when they were choking him to death for selling loose cigarettes or whatever it was. I don't care what the reason is. It was still wrong. They choked him to death. You had 6 officers who choked him to death. None of them went to jail. When was that? That's the last decade. That's under Obama. His sacrifice wasn't good enough for you? Like, if we're going with your twisted logic? Oh my God, I can't believe this. Like, this is not cringe. This is beyond cringe. This is just flat out insulting. It's provocative. Now, again, I don't know how people let them get away with this. And by the way, I want to point out something. I want to point out something to you, because this is from 2015, a leaked memo. Okay, take a look at what this says. All right. So this reportedly came from Nancy Pelosi's computer. Okay. And what does it say? It says that they should not offer support for Black Lives Matter. Okay. Here, it's a memorandum to DCCC staff. Okay. So they're saying here that presidential candidates, actually, hold on, I have a better copy over here. There we go. So they're saying presidential candidates have struggled to respond to tactics of the Black Lives Matter movement. Okay. And then they explain what it is. And then look what they say at the end. Tactics. They say meet with local activists. If approached by Black Lives Matter activists, campaign staff should offer to meet with local activists. Invited Black Lives Matter attendees should be limited. Please aim for personal or small group meetings. Listen to their concerns. Don't offer support for concrete policy positions. Frontline district staff should meet with activists. So they're telling them basically, you know, just appease them, but don't actually do anything. Don't actually offer any real support. Now, Nancy Pelosi denies that this came from her computer, right? Her office back in the day released a statement saying that, oh, this is not real. It didn't come from my computer. So that's up to you. I'll leave this up to you. I don't think that this is dependent on one memo, right? Because if there was a track record of actually doing stuff about this, about state violence, about police brutality, about the prison industrial complex, about racism, then this memo would not mean shit. You could easily look at that and say, no, that's fake, because look at her behavior, her voting, her legislating. It doesn't match with this. Problem is, it does match. Do you understand? It matches very much. And even right now, they're saying, oh, thank you, George Floyd. We've named a bill after you, right? After the state murdered you in the street. We've named a bill after you. And you remember they did this last year. So it got through the House last year, and then it didn't get through the Senate. Now, again, I think in March, so just last month, they got it through the House again. And now the question is, will they get this bill through the Senate? So let me pull it up for you. All right, here it is. So this is the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act of 2020. Okay, and you know, it's quite extensive. I'm just going to give you the, a brief summary of it. So, because it's basically divided into 3 different parts. Okay. And, in the first part, they talk about police accountability, reforming qualified immunity, so that you can actually sue police, which you can't do under qualified immunity. Yeah, that's a thing. And then they talk about how things would progress in court, accreditation of agencies. And then in part two, they get to police transparency through data. So they want to establish a national police registry for misconduct, right? So, in the United States, if you're, for example, working as a cop and then you get fired for any reason, whatever the reason is, you can just go to another police department and they will employ you. It's not like if you're a lawyer or if you're a doctor and you lose your license, you can't practice anymore. No, here it's fine. You can, maybe murder someone or involved in extortion, corruption. Oh, it's okay. You're fired. Just go to another police department. No worries. So they're talking about establishing a national registry for police misconduct. Okay. And then after that, in the third part, they talk about improving training. This is in regards to racial profiling, basically training officers to make sure that, I mean, it's quite vague, right? But basically, it's about training them not to racially profile or ethnically profile people, and also about body cameras. And they say things like also about chokeholds, because if you look at how George Floyd was killed, Chauvin put his knee on his neck. He cut the oxygen supply from the 2 arteries to his brain. He killed him. He suffocated him. And they're saying that police departments, they need to invest in the body cameras with their own money. And if they don't stop using chokeholds and if they don't stop putting their knees on people's necks, then they'll be cut off from state funding. Okay? So that's what's suggested in the bill. Now, look, let's get something straight, man. When they're laying out all of these things in this bill, and they're saying that you can only use you can't use reasonable force anymore. It's not about was the force reasonable, was it necessary? So now there's a distinction. You have to de-escalate first, and as a last measure, you can use deadly force. And I'm reading that and I'm thinking, how was this not already a thing? Like, who on earth decided that you should escalate to begin with? What kind of policing is that? That's not policing. I'm reading, I'm like, this wasn't already mandated that you de-escalate? They're not trained this way? I mean, it's kind of a rhetorical question, right? So a lot of these things, I'm reading them and I'm just astonished. I'm astonished that these things were not already, mandatory. Because forgive me for being naive. I thought some of them were, but they were breaking them. They weren't actually abiding by them. No, turns out a lot of this stuff wasn't even mandated by law. Now, the thing is that they're going to make sure that this doesn't get passed. I know this, this, because they couldn't even get the $15 minimum wage passed, right? They couldn't even do the $2,000 checks without lying. Oh no, it's brought down to $1,400. They're not even delivering on the campaign promises, right? I don't see this passing at all. And you have Republicans, of course, they're coming in and saying, well, qualified immunity, if we repeal that, we're not okay with that, right? So it's not just about body cameras, although they are making a fuss about that too. I think in Oregon, So anyway, that's on the state level, but I'm talking about the fact that they're not going to be able to get this passed through one reason or another. And it's not because, they can't actually do it. They just don't want to. They don't want to. Joe Biden, if you look at his behavior with the $15 minimum wage, they blame this on Joe Manchin. He didn't even call Joe Manchin. He didn't even pick up the phone to lobby the senator, right? He's president of the United States, and he's saying that, a lone senator from West Virginia is more powerful than him. He didn't even bother calling him. He didn't even bother putting pressure on him. Nothing. So you think if Joe Biden doesn't pressure Joe Manchin, that he's going to go and pressure Republicans now? They're all Republicans anyway, right? They're all Republicans anyway. They just go by different names. But you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. There will be no lobbying efforts on Joe Biden's behalf. Rather on the citizenry's behalf. But there will be no lobbying on his part towards Republicans. I can assure you, right? So they're coming out here and pretending that, oh, this is a step forward for justice. Look, finally, we have justice for George Floyd. Well, first of all, he shouldn't have been killed in the first place. What were you doing before that? And second of all, this is not enough. It's not enough, right? So I think AOC correctly pointed out that it's accountability, but it's not justice. It's accountability for one case, but it's not actual justice. And I really have a hard time believing that these two people, a jailer, Kamala Harris, the jailer, and Joe Biden, the Mr. Crime Bill, right? Mr. Prison Industrial Complex, Mr. War on Drugs. You really think these people who have done nothing but, again, it's not even serving law enforcement. They've just been serving corporations and who use law enforcement, right? You think they're really going to go and upset, cause an upset about this? No way. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So, I mean, a lot of these things, they look great. They're not getting passed, though. That's the problem. And you have to ask yourself, how much can Joe Biden actually do via executive order that he's not doing, right? How much lobbying can he do that he's not doing? And I'm wondering also one thing is that all the people that are celebrating, that are, in the streets, let me show you, this is from Status Quo. This is their exclusive reporting, right? They do a lot of on the ground stuff. Let me just show you people celebrating after the verdict, right? Right, they're chanting all three counts because he got convicted on all three counts, and you have tons of people celebrating. And I mean, I understand, but I feel like these politicians, they're just paying lip service. They're just saying nice things like they always do, but they're not actually going to reform anything. They're not going to meet any of the demands. I mean, just look at how they're acting before, and you have to consider. Look how many millions of people protested to get this verdict. I wasn't even sure that was going to happen. You remember I sat here last year and I told you I wouldn't be surprised if Chauvin is not convicted for anything, right? I was legitimately not sure. I thought that there's a chance that he's let off scot-free. I'm sure many of you also had that fear, had that suspicion that it might happen, because if you look at what happened with Ahmaud Arbery, for example, the people who shot him, I think one of them was a retired cop, so he knew people in the local police department. For months, they weren't arrested. Nothing. It's by accident that the footage came out, and then they were finally arrested, right? If you look at Jacob Blake, the guy who shot him in Kenosha, no charges, and he's back on the job. He's not even fired, right? If you look at Eric Garner, the NYPD, the 6 NYPD police who killed him, no one went to jail. The only person who went to jail is the person who took the video. So you have so many cases of no justice. So I was fully expecting, they're just going to do it again. They're going to wait until the protests die down, and then they'll just let him off scot-free, right? So I was also surprised that he actually got the conviction. Sentencing, we don't know yet, but you shouldn't have to protest for a year and have so many millions of people coming out just to get a drop of accountability or justice. That's not a mark. That's not an indication of a functioning judiciary or a government. That's actually the mark of a judiciary that is not functional, of a lack of accountability. That's what it's an indication of. That's very worrying, right? It's very worrying. And it's not just George Floyd, it's all the other deaths that I just mentioned to you. Just at the day that they were giving the verdict, you know what happened? Here, let me show you. This is from Ohio. 15-year-old girl got shot. She actually called the police. She called the police because she felt that she was in danger, and they come, and of course they don't know how to do anything. They don't know how to de-escalate. They don't know what they just shoot, right? Shoot first, ask questions later. That's the same day. That's the same day. Makia Bryant is her name, right? In Columbus, in Ohio. I mean, what am I supposed to say, man? What am I supposed to say? And another interesting thing that I would point out, you know how they're saying in the George Floyd bill that they want to pass, they're saying that, you know, police departments that continue to use chokeholds, that continue to put their knees on people's necks, they will be cut off from funding. And I'm thinking to myself, well, hold on a second. Israel does that to Palestinians every day, all the time. And that's paid for by the United States. Are you going to also threaten them with that same exact condition? I think that's a reasonable question worth asking, right? Because already at the time when George Floyd was killed, people were saying, hey, look, that's a technique that the Israelis use. And, you know, they have a partnership program where you have some law enforcement agencies in the United States that train with the Israelis. And then, of course, the Israelis are saying, no, that's not true. You're lying. We never taught them this, whatever. Well, you know, that's in the best case scenario that you didn't teach it to the Americans. You're still doing it to Palestinians. You're still using that on Palestinians. And, you know, here, I'm just going to show you this. And again, it's upsetting, but it's necessary, right? So here, this is from September. Look, the Israelis do this all the time. You see, putting his knee on his neck. The same thing, and those green uniforms, that's the Israeli army. Those are the Israeli occupation forces. So we know for a fact they get paid by the United States, right? The United States gives the Israelis $3.8 billion in military aid every year. It goes to the military. That's not border police. That's not Shin Bet. No, that's the military. It's an occupation. Are you also going to condition aid to Israel because of that? Just like you threatened to condition aid to your police departments? I mean, you shouldn't be conditioning. You should fucking cut it off, right? Because that's like the mildest aspect of it, right? That's not taking into consideration the chemical weapons that they use on Palestinians, the hundreds of kids that they have locked up in jails, you know, the fact that they're just bulldozing people's homes and taking them over for, you know, white colonizers from Europe and elsewhere. The residential bombings, I mean, Jesus Christ, it goes on, man. It's 73 years of occupation. So, you know, you want to come here and tell me that that they actually care about this behavior? No, I don't buy it. Unfortunately, I really don't buy it. So, you know, I'm looking at this this George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, and, you know, yeah, they got a lot of nice things in there. Does it go far enough? I don't know. I don't think so. Are they actually going to get it done? Like, this is the bare minimum, and they're not even going to get it done. I can assure you. You know, this is the bare minimum, and they probably most likely will not get it done. It won't pass, right? What a shame, honestly. And they come here and they just insult this man's memory again. What was that from Nancy Pelosi? Has she lost her goddamn mind? Has she lost her goddamn mind? That was insulting. That was insulting. I'm so angry at all this, honestly. Here, I'm going to read you a tweet from Danny Haifong. So he says that this is worse than bare minimum. Since 2014, we've known that roughly a quarter of all police murders are Black Americans, yet the Department of Justice refuses to even keep data of police misconduct. An investigation into one police department is an attempt at placation, not justice. Right? Because this is after announcement they're going to investigate the Minneapolis Police Department where, you know, Chauvin was employed with the other three. So, I mean, this is, it's not even a quarter-assed measure. It's less than that. And it's very unfortunate. You know, you got all these millions of people protesting and, you know, it's, no, I'm not saying it was pointless. On the contrary, it should be kept up. All right, direct action, general strike, absolutely. We have to watch out because this is how they try to, you know, blunt, co-opt movements like that, right? I mean, depending on how much of a threat you are to the government, if you're, for example, the Black Panthers, they will actually send the FBI after you. They will infiltrate you, right? They will come and just flat out shoot you in your home, which is very, again, not very much different from what we're seeing here. But, you know, they will actually employ federal agencies to come after you because your liberation movement, Black liberation, poses a threat. You know, feminists, communists, they infiltrated these groups. They tried to dismantle them. And if you actually look at the last couple of years, they've been treating Black Lives Matter as you know, like a terrorist threat domestically. That's not a joke. That's not a joke. That's how they've been treating it. And that speaks volumes because, again, it's not something new. They've been doing this for decades, you know, since the Cold War. This is how the government treats liberation movements. So if you think they're just going to roll over and you know, give people what they want, no, not even the bare minimum. That's how corrupt these people are. I mean, they make careers off of jailing people. What do you expect? Like, you know, it's disgusting. So, I mean, it's again, you know, just to summarize, it's great that Chauvin got convicted for all 3 counts. I mean, is that it though? Are they just going to come here like Nancy Pelosi and give these insulting speeches and then nothing happens? No, that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. So, you know, be wary of people who are saying, oh, the work is done here, or, you know, quietly stop talking about this issue afterwards. Because it's not done. Again, I don't want to show you my drink, so I'm gonna cover the screen. I'm gonna cover the screen so to show you my drink. Okay, hold on. By the way, those are the donation things. If you have questions, just shoot. We're not done yet. I just need some water, man. Well, it's not water, you know. It's just soda, but I don't want to give any brands any airtime. We're not supposed to be supporting these goddamn violent corporations over here, man. We're not supposed to be giving them free ads for soda. All right, we're trying to be more disciplined than that. So just give me a second, man. Give me a second. And thank you again for all your donations. You're very generous. Again, you're very kind. I'll get to them at the end. So thank you for that. And all right, one sec. I'm just getting the next one set up. Okay, so what's really cool, I finally got Clubhouse. So like I was a bit confused by it because I was like, what the hell is Clubhouse? And people are talking about this, and then turns out it's like it's some social media app where you just enter a group chat via voice. It's just a conversation. I'm still trying to figure it out, and you know, I don't know why I'm mentioning that. So if someone messaged me about it, that's why actually. But anyway, let's get to the next thing over here, man. Let's get to the next thing. God, I'm really bewildered and appalled by Pelosi. Like that, she just can't stop Can she? She just can't stop. Okay, so this is a big topic now, right? Buckle up. Buckle up. So, this last week has been very eventful in regards to Syria because, you know, they're trying to recycle the chemical weapons fiasco on several fronts. So, the first thing, on April 12th, you had the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, the OPCW, publish a report. Okay, take a look. So this report basically, hold on, it's not loading. Excuse me. Here we are. Wonderful. So this report, okay, what is this about? They're saying basically that Syria has been using chemical weapons, that the Syrian Arab Army is guilty of using chemical weapons. Now, when we say guilty, I mean that figuratively because, again, the OPCW is not, a judicial body. So they say that they've been investigating for a little over a year, and they found that the Syrian Arab Army used chemical weapons in, we're not talking about Duma here, but we'll get to that in a second, right? So they're saying that this occurred in, so there we go. April 2020, March 2021. That was the duration of the investigation. And the incident they're focusing on is the 4th of February 2018 in Saraqib. Okay? And basically, you know, they use this today as a reason to ban Syria from the OPCW, if you can believe that. They legitimately banned Syria from the OPCW. So you can see here all these various articles. I mean, look at this. It's insane. Syria stripped of OPCW member rights over poison gas attacks. Right? They say the organization, the OPCW, voted on Wednesday to strip Syria of its rights at the organization after a probe blamed Damascus for poison gas attacks. And they say Syria will have its own voting rights revoked and will be banned from holding any offices at the Netherlands-based agency. The measures were in response to an OPCW investigation last year that found the Air Force of Bashar al-Assad had used nerve agent sarin and chlorine gas in 3 attacks on the village of Latamina in March 2017. And, you know, this is the first country that has its member rights revoked. Syria is the first country that this happens to. And 2/3 of them voted for this. So 2/3 majority was needed. And of course, France is actually the country that put forward this proposal, right? Because they're right on the anniversary of our independence from them. And of course, Britain and the United States voted for it. Russia, China, Iran, they voted against it. I think about 15 countries, including Syria, who voted against it. And, you know, it's a shambles, right? The OPCW has no credibility whatsoever. And I want to play you a clip over here. This is from, hold on. Here we go, from Mick Wallace. Okay. So he was speaking at the EU. He's a member of the EU Parliament. And, you know, this is from April 15th. So this is just a few days ago, right? Let me play you the clip. And keep in mind, he's speaking in front of the Director General of the OPCW, who's present, okay?
In March 2019, the OPCW put out a report on the alleged chemical attack in Duma, alleging Syrian guilt. But a series of leaks emerged from inside the OPCW, showing that the inspectors on the ground reached a very different conclusion. The so-called chemical attack, which the US, France and UK used as an excuse to bomb Syria, most likely was staged with the help of the White Helmets, a UK-US paid propaganda entity. We need clarity, we need the truth. As Julian Assange says, if wars can be started by lies, peace can be started by the truth. You are aware from the leaks now in the public domain that in June 18, a month before you became Director General, the original team report on the Duma incident found that there was no evidence of a chemical attack. But this was switched to a highly doctored version that made unsupported claims of that chemical attack. On top of the doctoring and censorship of the original report, there were other well-documented scientific and procedural irregularities. This includes the expert opinions from toxicologists who ruled out chlorine as the cause of deaths of the victims. Yet their opinion was suppressed in the final report. Also, we had false information leaked from the OPCW, the NATO...
Can you please conclude?
Sorry?
Can you please go to your conclusion?
Yeah. Director General, the credibility of the OPCW is at stake. Why will you not heed calls from renowned international figures, including the organisation's first Director General, Jose Bostani, and several former team leaders from the OPCW, to meet with all the investigators, including the dissenting inspectors?
I cannot accept that you can call into question the work of an international organisation and that you call into the question the word of the victims in the way you have just done. And I would ask you, Director General, to please forgive what we just heard, which seems to me to be fake news. I give you the floor.
President, why am I the only one that was interfered with here? Is there no freedom of speech being allowed in the European Parliament anymore? What's going on with this?
I mean, that is just obscene. That is outrageous. Did you see how she's trying to cut him off? Get your conclusion, please. Motherfucker. Oh, you know, when it suits them, it's the most important issue in the world. But when you present them facts from their own goddamn scientists, which they don't want to hear, oh, get your conclusion, please. Oh, I'm so sorry, Director General. I can't believe that this deranged fellow just insulted you with his truth. I'm so sorry. What on God's earth are these people? Man, do you know how vile you have to be to come in and drag Syria's name through the dirt for the last 10 years? That's all they've been doing. That's all they've been doing for the last 10 years. Dragging Syria's name through the dirt. And I'm going to get back to Duma, which she's talked about here in a second. The OPCW itself came in and dismantled Syria's entire chemical weapons program in 2013, 2014. All right? This is documented. This is proven. Russia, the United States, the OPCW oversaw this. They certified Syria has destroyed chemical weapons facilities. International inspectors say this is from October 31st, 2013. That's a fact. That's a fact. I mean, if you want to come here, if you want to come here and tell me that this is not true, I mean, either you're lying or you're incompetent. It is your responsibility to do that, right? The Syrian government said, okay, come in and just take everything. Did you get rid of it or not? Be clear. Did you get rid of it or not? Because this attack that happened in Saraqib, okay, which I mentioned to you in the beginning of the report. Take a look. Look what they're saying here, man. They're saying that a helicopter of the Syrian Arab Air Force under the control of the Tiger forces hit eastern Saraqib by dropping at least one cylinder. The cylinder ruptured and released the toxic gas chlorine, which dispersed over a large area, affecting 12 named individuals. So let me get this straight. You're telling me that the Syrian army went through all that effort to make one cylinder for 12 people? After you took away all their chemical weapons, and they already know that, whoa, Obama just said this is the red line. Who believes that? Please, could someone, for the love of God, explain to me the strategic value of that? What is the strategic military value of that? Just use common sense. What is the strategic value of one cylinder for 12 people? Who are these 12 people? You want to come here and tell me it's the, I don't know, the heads of the Israeli government? Maybe I believe it. Yeah, I believe it then, maybe. But just 12 random civilians? Who believes this? Honestly, who believes that? What is the incentive to do that? There is no incentive. There is no strategic value. There is no military value. There is no logical purpose in doing that at all. Now, you know, going back to Duma, because this is very important, what Wallace was just talking about. In 2018, in Duma, which is just outside of Damascus, it's in the countryside. So just outside Damascus, you have Ghouta, right? And then Duma is well, it's not really a city. A town is perhaps the more correct term, right? It's in Ghouta. And so they said that a chemical gas attack had taken place there, okay? And the United States, France, Britain, they used that as an excuse to go and bomb Syria. They didn't even give time for the OPCW inspectors to actually go there and see if a chemical gas attack had happened. They just took the word of the white helmets and the videos that they're posting. And remember, the white helmets, we know for a fact, we have the receipts from the Foreign Commonwealth Office, which is Britain's State Department, that the white helmets were financed and set up by British intelligence, right? So they just believed those videos and went and bombed Syria with no UN mandate. Remember, you can't just go and bomb a country because they did something you don't like. You have to go to the United Nations. You have to go to the Security Council. You have to get permission, right? You can't just bomb another country because you feel like it, especially when it's based on lies. So they didn't even let the OPCW do their work, first of all. They just immediately, after 2 days, they're like, okay, we're going to go bomb it. Now, the OPCW, when they finally got there, right, they sent a fact-finding mission. And Henderson was the guy leading it. And, you know, this is astonishing because I've covered all this before. Look, you know, I covered all this stuff with the white helmets with Syria and the Duma gas attack when they came out, but it has like 300 views because I didn't have that many subscribers at the time. So go watch it. So that, you know, the video, I covered all this. I went into detail with all the WikiLeaks information. Look, this is, look, it's got 367 views, man. Go watch it. I did good work, man. I also had Aaron Matei on, and this was a really good one with Aaron Matei. I really enjoyed that because he's on top of his shit. He knows this better than anyone. And, you know, what was really cool is that I was also providing the geographical strategic meaning of this with maps. Like I'm showing you, the Syrian army has already taken back this entire area of Ghouta. Why on earth would they use chemical weapons when they've just won a giant battle that took 2 months to win? Like the day that they win, all of a sudden there's a chemical weapons attack. Like, man, there must be some real dumb asses running the Syrian army if everything the OPCW says is true. They're using chemical weapons, one cylinder, from a helicopter for 12 people, and then they bomb Duma after they've already taken back the goddamn region of Ghouta. Who believes this crap? Like, you have to have no clue whatsoever about what's going on to believe that shit. And of course, that's how the media reported. They don't tell you any of this. This is just like open information anyone can get. Not to mention the fact that we have the receipts, we have the internal emails, we have the toxicology reports, we have the ballistics reports. There was no chemical gas attack. The scientists, the literal scientists of the OPCW who were sent there to investigate came back and said, hey, there was no chemical gas attack. It's fake. The canister was placed manually. How do they know this? Because they're engineers. You know, it's their job to study that. They understand ballistics. The toxicology reports, it has trace amounts. It's not enough. It could have come from household appliances. And you have all these things that they removed from the report. So you want to come here and tell me that this organization has any credibility left? How can you trust them? Because their entire thing is to give you the science. The OPCW, their job is, of course, you know, to uphold the treaty again for the ban of chemical weapons, which of course Israel has never signed. And you know, their job is to do what they did in Duma. They go there and they collect samples, they study the site, and then they deliver a report. Did this happen? Yes or no? And when They established there was no chemical gas attack. The OPCW censored it. They completely doctored the entire report. And then they tried to discredit Henderson as well. They said that, oh, he wasn't there. The guy's the literal team leader. He's not just a member of the team, he's the team leader. And they tried to discredit him and say that he had nothing to do with, I mean, lunacy, like actual lunacy. And then they made a new team, right? They had a new team established. So not the people who actually went to Duma, to the site, the fact-finding mission. No. They had a new core team assembled. And there's like one person from the original team who's part of it. One person. So the rest of the people writing this new report weren't there. It's a scandal. I covered it, so please go watch those videos because, you know, I went into detail on my own. I went into detail with Aaron, and it's utterly scandalous. And now you want to come here and tell me that this organization is issuing more reports and we're supposed to believe them? They don't even listen to their own scientists. How can anyone trust them? They're not about science. This organization does not accept science. They are science deniers. Why? Because they want to fit a political narrative, right? They're taking the evidence and not even molding it. They're just completely doctoring it to fit foreign policy that France, the United Kingdom, USA are pushing. That's it. I can't believe that this surprises anyone. Like, how can you be surprised by this after 2003? We've seen this movie before. How many countries have to be bombed and invaded over weapons of mass destruction before you finally get it that you cannot trust these Western countries when they talk about this topic? How many times does that have to take place? And Iraq was way bigger. Those lies were tremendous. They were saying this guy is giving nuclear weapons to Al-Qaeda, which again makes no sense if you understand the politics of the region. So this organization is completely discredited. It's an embarrassment. I mean, yeah. Look, I have the stuff from WikiLeaks over here. This is just one leak. This is one document from the Duma documents. Okay, this is an internal OPCW email, and you know they're saying how. They're saying how the whole thing was doctored, okay? They said it's particularly worrisome. They're saying that in the original one, because you have to understand something, we had, I tried not to go back and reopen the whole thing because I'd rather you go watch that video where I just examined it in full, but we've seen the preliminary report, the first one, the actual one, and then of course the doctored one and the final one, and they just deviate completely. And here you have one of the inspectors telling leadership like, yo, what are you doing? Everything that you've written here is not what we found in the site. And again, I just told it to you a few minutes ago, right, that there are trace amounts. You know, the toxicology reports just don't, they don't match the symptoms of someone who's actually been through a chemical gas attack. So, you know, there's all of that. And another thing that I would point out as well, a few days ago, and I think you had Aaron who was talking there as well. This was at the UN Security Council. One of the people who spoke there, again, speaking of Iraq and weapons of mass destruction, you had Lawrence Wilkerson. Okay, so he's the former chief of staff for, you know, Colin Powell, who's Secretary of State. You remember Colin Powell? I showed you the picture earlier. He went to the UN and he lied about chemical weapons. So this is his former chief of staff. I'll let him speak. All right, you just listen to what he says.
I know how we tried to influence the IAEA with regard to Iraq and other countries. I know how, as I said before, we tried to undermine the ICC, we being Washington. So I'm here as an impartial observer, if you will, but my real interest is in, as I think most of your interest is probably in, is keeping this international organization sound. The OPCW is a very important organization. It represents one of the few more heinous utensils of warfare, if you will, that we have largely gotten rid of, and I would like to see totally eradicated from the face of the earth. And I'm a military professional telling you that. There is no good to be had out of chemical weapons, period. Over. Conversation ended. So we need to make sure this organization has the power and the backing and the support to do its job. And I know how we
used in Syria, and that it was the government of Syria that did it.
And then when I saw the photographs and other things, I know a little bit about VX and sarin and chlorine and so forth. I saw that some of the claims were preposterous. They were preposterous, simply preposterous. When you see a man standing beside a crater, for example, and alleged VX or sarin was used, you know it's preposterous. The man would be dead. I know how effective these kinds of chemical weapons are. And I happen to know also what kinds of weapons Syria had in its stockpile. We had a dossier on that for a long, long time during the Cold War. So count me very skeptical on even any use of chemical weapons of consequence by the Syrian government in Syria. That's the start point. And then this occasion is used in Syria.
All right. So, I mean, I don't know how much further I need to go, but, you know, it's incredible. You also have, of course, a letter that was signed, I think on March 15th. So just last month, you know, Oliver Stone, Noam Chomsky. I mean, just a plethora of people that want the OPCW just to meet with with its own scientists to, you know, sort this issue out, because the OPCW has, as I told you, they've tried to discredit Henderson. They've tried to ignore this completely. I think when Aaron was speaking, the UK and French ambassadors left the meeting. I mean, they're so disgustingly rude. Like, you know, they behave like thugs rather than diplomats. And, you know, it's astonishing that people are still buying this crap. They're still believing this nonsense after Iraq. They're still believing this after the leaks. I mean, I don't know what to say, man. And the media goes along with it. You know, to this day, the New York Times, they've never apologized or corrected the Duma story. You know, you go on their website, they have a 3D, not reenactment, but a 3D model of, you know, the attack in Duma with the canister that was placed there manually, which they don't tell you, right? Like, they just leave it up there, like as if it's a fact, like as if these leaks that I just showed you in WikiLeaks never, you know, occurred, never happened. These people are conspiracy theorists of the highest order. They start wars based on lies. They deny science. It's unbelievable. It's incredible. And I mean, the OPCW, we already know from the former director from Bustani that he was intimidated by John Bolton. You know, he said, like, we know where your kids live. This was in the lead up to the Iraq War. So, you know, this organization, I mean, I'm sorry to say it, but it's useless. You know, if it keeps getting either bullied by the United States or just flat out hijacked, and you know, they're doctoring the reports. No, this is not an independent scientific body. This is not an independent organization. It's not an unbiased organization. This is all political. They're trying to drag Syria's name through the dirt. And you know, like, you can come here and we can go through valid critiques of the Syrian government without resorting to flat out lies. But they have to resort to flat out lies because they want to justify bombing Syria, like when the UK, France, and the US did it. They want to justify regime change. So that's why they keep bringing out the most outlandish, extreme lie possible, just like they did with Saddam. Like, you know, Saddam not only has chemical weapons, he can build them in 45 minutes. Bioweapons in 45 minutes. And he's also giving them to Al-Qaeda. Like, it's just, you know, next he's going to be, he's making it with fucking aliens on Mars. The most outrageous lies with zero evidence. Why? Because they use that to go to war. So, you know, people shut up when there are body bags coming home, when there are billions, trillions being spent on the military, you know, more like lining the pockets of weapons manufacturers. So that's what it's about. And unfortunately, the OPCW is just serving a political agenda. It's really disgusting. So, you know, honestly, you should really, just if you're not familiar with this issue, although I'm sure many of you are, you should really go watch this video I did with Aaron. I think it was, hello everybody. There we go. That's my voice playing. I think it was, if I may say so, I think we did a really good job of breaking it down. And yeah, you can see here I was going through the maps, trying to explain how they were taking back this entire region of Ghouta, right? And it got to the point, like, they've taken back everything except this little thing. And then, oh, there's a chemical attack. Oh my God. Like, just obscene. And then, of course, we went through the entire WikiLeaks revelations and all of that. So yeah, definitely go check that out. Just type Aaron Matei, Richard Medhurst, you'll find it. And again, I'm just like, I'm disgusted, but I'm not surprised that they've tried to kick Syria out of the, or at least suspend its rights under the OPCW. You know, it's just like when they also removed Syria from the Arab League. Like, how are you going to remove Syria from the Arab League? That's the motherland of Arabism. Like, wait, you know, this ridiculous. It doesn't mean it's all political. It's all political. So, you know, and ironically, it's who's actually using these chemical weapons? Who is actually using them? It's the terrorists, right? Because it's a win-win for them. They're making them with household supplies, as we saw, and they're also inviting in bombings. They're inviting in regime change, which suits their agenda, right? It's disgusting. So again, I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised at all. And I think the reason that they're recycling this chemical weapon stuff is because right now in Syria, you know, it's been a stalemate for the last 2 years, essentially. Again, we have the situation where most of the country is back under the government control, and then northeast you have the Kurds and the Americans, and then north or northwest in Idlib you have the Turkish army and their militias and Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and Al-Qaeda and all these. So, you know, it's kind of a stalemate, and they're trying to, they've run out of tricks at this point, right? Who are the rebels that are in Syria? What's left? It's all Al-Qaeda. Like, you can't even pick out like some elements and then claim that they're moderate. No, it's just Al-Qaeda now. So, you know, they're resorting to this again. They're a bunch of conspiracy theorists. They're you know, science deniers and liars of the highest order. These people make Alex Jones look like a philosopher. Like, seriously, like these people start wars. They kill and displace millions based on these lies, you know, based on these conspiracies. They're, you know, it's insane. So anyway, man, we got 522 people watching. That's amazing. That's more that's more people than the totality of the views on that OC video I showed you. So definitely hit the like button if you can. I really hate doing these YouTuber phrases. Leave a comment down below. Shut the fuck up, man. Just, I'm asking you because it's for the algorithm. That's all. That's the only reason. Okay. And I know you guys are very good. I know you'll do that anyway. So let me get your super chats. You guys have been very generous and very patient. So let me read them, and let's get to them, man. So, okay, I'm gonna start out with Venmo. You guys are very nice. So this is from Neil. Neil sent me a bunch of shoe emojis, right? And says Muntadar did nothing wrong, right? So that's a journalist who threw his shoes at George Bush. I tagged him earlier because when I responded to that video or that tweet rather of George Bush saying that he's you know, offended by lies, I mean, like, just shoe immediately, the shoe, sarmaye, you know, or as they say in Spanish, the chancla, right? So in Arabic you say sarmaye or shahata. And we got another one from Neil. Thank you. It says, can you do a segment on Mimi's Abu Jamal and Leonard Pelletier? They are both U.S. political prisoners like Assange. Absolutely. And I also have to do one. I mean, I want to talk about Joshua Schulte as well. And, you know, a bit more broadly about, there's also Dunsinger, who's also like trapped in his home. So I definitely want to cover all these. Thank you, Neil. I will write it down and then get to it. And I appreciate the suggestion. We got one from Ramon. Just the emojis. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Right back at you. High five. So thank you, Ramon. So going back over here to Rockfin. Again, thank you to everyone who's watching on Rockfin. If you don't have an account on Rockfin, go make one. It's free. It's an alternative to YouTube with no censorship. I can talk about the OPCW and this fuckery on YouTube, on Rockfin, without worrying about, oh, can I put that in the title? Oh, can I say this? No, it's fine. So, you know, go make an account there. Jin Do, thank you for the tip. Anna says, I want to know your honest opinion on the lockdowns and vaccine hijack of our civil liberties that is coming. Don't be one of those channels to toe the line, please. Well, depends what you're talking about, the US or Europe, because if you look at the UK, they started out with, like headless chickens. They're like, oh, we're going to do herd immunity. And then, oh, no, actually, we're going to do lockdowns, but like schools can open. And then, no, pubs can stay open, but only until 10 p.m. I mean, what is that? Beyond that, I'm not a doctor, so I'm really not qualified whatsoever to speak about this. I do think there should be a distinction, though. Like, once again, we were just talking about science, right? You need to be able to actually rely on sound science from these authorities, or I don't mean like the police. I mean people who are qualified to talk about it without it being politicized. You feel me? And that's the problem, because who can tell what's what? Like, how much of it is actually based on science and how much of it is them trying to capitalize off of that? Because if you, for example, just take any kind of crisis that happens, they always go beyond that and try to use it for other means, right? I think we understand each other. Now, again, I mean, that's as much as I'm qualified to say. That's all I'm going to say, because I don't know what else to say. But yeah, it is kind of messed up when you see people like the chief scientific advisor in the UK, who has £600,000 invested in a vaccine manufacturer. I mean, like, even if you want to give him the benefit of the doubt, like, that's just straight up corruption. That's a conflict of interest, to say the least. You as a chief scientific advisor to the government should not have anything invested in any pharmaceutical company whatsoever. Like, flat out, that should disqualify you from that job. So when I see corruption like that, I'm going like, what is what's happening? That's true. And don't get me started about Fauci, because I literally do not. I don't know anything about that guy. I lost it with him. Because I see you guys bringing him up in the comments. I don't know. I'm just telling you about the UK. Anyway, man. We have a correction over here from Scalpel. It says Shahata is more of a dirty flip-flop than a shoe. That's true, right? I was talking about slippers mostly, right? Sarmaya, Shahata. Because some people like George Bush, they don't even deserve a shoe. So I think, that was maybe a bit too generous. 2 shoes? No. But I understand the range. You needed something with good torque and velocity. There you go, man. So hold on. We got some super chats. Let me read them. God damn it, YouTube. You're not showing them to me. Here we got one from Matt. Matt says, do you think the United States is at risk of an armed anti-police insurgency? No, I don't think so. By whom? Do you mean because of... I mean, again, I'm not trying to be rude or something at all, but the first thing that comes to mind when I hear that is like what right-wingers will usually say. Although, again, Democrats are also right-wingers, but we're talking, more about the conservative Republican media. I don't think so. No, I don't think that Black Lives Matter are going to start spraying people. No, I don't think so. I think, unfortunately, the people in the United States, they're too brainwashed. Again, no offense to be... They won't even engage in, like, a general strike. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing more peaceful than that. You're literally just not coming to work. Like, they won't even do that, for their own benefit. So, I don't know, man. And I don't see that happening. Again, I hope that answers your question, because... My belief is that the mainstream media is just so good at brainwashing and propagandizing people that there's no... How are you going to organize? There's no organization on any level. And so by extension, no, I don't think that is actually a thing. But if anything, it's the police. I mean, you just need to look at how paramilitarized they are. Right? They have armored personnel carriers. They're using Predator drones. Customs and Border Protection has a Predator drone that they were flying over the George Floyd protests. What? I mean, that thing is usually, I'm not saying it was in that instance, but usually they equip it with Hellfire missiles to kill people, right? When they drone strike them. It's the exact same model. Although they have several models. You have a Reaper, you have the a Predator. I'm forgetting Global Hawk as well. I'm forgetting all the various ones. Some of them are for surveillance. Some of them are actually armed. And so, you know, what is law enforcement doing with that? It's money. It's all about money. You know, there's a reason why they arm them to the teeth. I mean, they could probably get the same job done that they're doing, and I mean that sarcastically, without being armed to the teeth. But the fact that they are armed to the teeth, I mean, it just not only signifies that you have a paramilitarized a police, which is a police state, in effect, and a very menacing one at that, but also that there's a profit incentive here, because who's making money from this? Who's giving these budgets and then spending them? You know, it's the military-industrial complex lobbying politicians to give these budgets, and then they go and spend them at the military-industrial complex. It's the same companies who make wars for profit. So, if anything, I'm a bit more concerned about about that. So there you go. DC says, "I bet you won't insult your queen." Fuck the queen. Is that treason? I'm actually not sure if that's still treason. Is that like punishable? Are they going to take away my citizenship or something? I mean, they took away my voting rights, right? Because if you're absent for too long, they take away your voting rights in the UK. So, you know, they've done that. I mean, who knows, man? They seem to have a habit of taking away or threatening to take away Syrians' British citizenship lately, don't they? Huh? If you know what I mean. Anyway, so you guys have sent other super chats, but YouTube is hiding them. I will find them in a second. Just give me a moment. God dang it, where'd it go, man? Okay. So we got a sticker over here from John. John, thank you so much, and a thumbs up to you as well. I appreciate it. Khalid says, "How much anger towards Arabs did Bush stoke?" We're still not over that. I distinctly remember that after 9/11, you had so much like anti-Muslim, anti-Arab sentiment that you had people mistaking. In the United States, you had people mistaking Sikhs for Muslims and committing violence against them as if either one is okay. But it just shows you, it just indicates like how fucking poisonous all of this crap that they did is, right? It's insane, honestly. And you go and you look at who created Al Qaeda. It's the United States. It's the same people, man. Anyway. Rock Lee, thank you for the super chat. Says, "Have you ever covered the Daniel Shaver case? Cop got off." I have not, and I'm. You have to forgive me. I think you mentioned this in one of the previous lives, and I completely. Well, I'm looking it up now. I'm not familiar with this at all. This is in Arizona, yeah? No, I'm not familiar with this. Oh, excuse me. No, this was in. Oh, okay, he's from Texas and it happened in Arizona. So that was okay. So okay, he was holding a pellet gun, and as you're saying, he was charged with second-degree murder and then found not guilty. I mean, that is at the very least manslaughter. That you would be so. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not surprised, right? I just went through the list before earlier of just in the last year, with the exception of Eric Garner, who's now several years, but just in the last year, how many incidents you've had, and there's no accountability. So this does not surprise me either. It's really, and you know what they're saying also? The cop suffered from PTSD and the criminal trial. I mean, again, I'm not a doctor. I can, although still I can imagine that's technically possible. But what do you think his family went through? I mean, this is obscene, and you see this a lot. This is not the first time I see something like that, where the oppressor, right, or the aggressor is claiming that they have suffered from the incident. I mean, I don't know. I'm really speechless. I'm really speechless. Spark, thank you for the donation, says no one in the Seattle Police Department has been charged in the triple murder of Charlene Lyles. She was 8 months pregnant with twins when they shot her, a triple homicide. Jesus. Yeah. I don't even know what to say because sorry, I'm looking this up. This is awful. And this happened in 2016, yeah? So again, this is in the last couple of years. I mean, it's really this is really concerning on multiple levels. And I think if a doctor had done that, because you remember before we were talking about being able to leave one police department and go to another one. You know, if a doctor had so carelessly killed a patient, right, they would have their license taken away. You would not be allowed to practice medicine. And what's shocking to me is that there's not only no justice and accountability, it's like, yeah, you can just continue working or perhaps go to another police department and maybe do the same thing again. How on earth does that make sense? What is that? How does anyone justify that? And I'm not surprised, right? I see this and it's horrifying. I'm not surprised. And another point I wanted to raise is if you look at the very few war crimes, very few that have actually been tried in the United States. This is things like Abu Ghraib, for example, where it was so publicized that they just had to. Even then, the sentences that they give out, many of them, they get convicted, but there's no sentence. It's a suspended sentence, or they get an dishonorable discharge and then maybe serve a year and that's it, or 6 months. And again, it's for torture. It's for executions. So we're not talking about things that are too different, right? And again, there's no accountability for that. And it's the same thing in the UK, huh? I always bring up the case of Baha Musa. Like, this guy was 26, Iraqi, 26 years old, and they just beat him to death. They British troops, they beat him to death. And only one person from the entire, not platoon, the squad, I think, was actually sent to jail and served 1 year for beating someone to death. What is that? The guy's innocent. He done nothing. And even if, even a prisoner of war, you can't touch them under the Geneva Convention. So, even if he was an armed combatant, once you've arrested him, he's in custody, you can't touch him. You can't do shit to him. But even then, the guy's a hotel, working in a hotel. They just picked him off the street, beat him to death. Like, what is that? There's no justice, right? They just treat Iraqis, they treat Afghans, they treat anyone who's from, they consider otherly. Whether it's at home or abroad, they just treat them like they're not human, like they're ants, like they're, an inconvenience or something. It's astonishing. And it's really disturbing. And it's all connected, right? I'm just saying it's all connected because you have So just excuse me, I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything over here. So we got one over here from Samira. It says, I wholeheartedly agree with all your condemnations of the West, but I need to know if you also hold the Syrian government to that standard of integrity for crimes against Syrians. Well, if we have to do that, we have to know which of the crimes are actually true. Because, if you go and ask the OPCW, they'll tell you that Duma was true, right? And then their idea of holding Syria accountable, well, not the OPCW, but the West, is to go and bomb Syria. So, I mean, how can you discern what's actually been happening in the last 10 years when it's one of the most propagandized wars? Like, you have to deal with the external threat, which is 12 countries, the entire world, honestly, trying to infiltrate, trying to destroy, and, impose their way on us. And then we can actually start to deal with our own shit. Because right now, this is not us. Like, this is other people in France, in UK, in Saudi Arabia, pushing propaganda, pushing other groups onto us with their ideologies, with their own goals. So, you know, you can't hold someone accountable when you don't even know what the fuck happened. You get what I'm saying? And as long as there's not just an armed conflict with weapons, but also with propaganda, we can't do that. We can't do that. And that's actually the messed up thing, because the people who were legitimately, I'm not talking about like jihadists and shit. I'm talking about people who were legitimately well-intentioned and actually wanted, you know, to change the country through peaceful means. They've had everything co-opted. There's nothing left of that, right? So the people who actually wanted to, you know, have reforms to actually change Syria for the better, that's all gone now, because the face of the opposition, the entirety has been co-opted by jihadists, by the West, by, you know, Turkey, Saudi Arabia. They've taken that over, and now it's you know, it's, I don't know what to tell you, but yeah, I mean, can you actually tell me what's true and what's not? That's a legitimate question. I'm not just saying that like to deflect or something. I legitimately don't know. One thing I know for sure, the Duma thing is not true. I know that for sure because we have the leaked documents. That's proven. What else is not true? What else is true? Right? That's what I want to know. And then of course you have to consider that we do things our own way, right? I mean, the Americans, they don't even tolerate this idea of the International Criminal Court or one of their own being tried there, right? They said, like, if anyone is sent to the ICC, and if any American is sent there, we'll invade the Netherlands, right? It's known commonly as the Hague Act, 2002, under Bush. So the Americans won't tolerate anyone else judging them. So why should we tolerate that? Especially when the people who are running these institutions have a bias against us. Do you understand? Even when it comes to science, they're fucking lying and spewing lies, you know, complete fabrications. So, I mean, that's the problem, man. That's the real problem. Shadow Band says James Boyd was a homeless man in the mountains of my home city. I remember. I know what you're talking about. There was a video of it. Hold on. Yeah, I've seen this video. This was heartbreaking, man. So James Boyd was a homeless man in the mountains of my home city, was murdered by police via assault rifle after being tased. No charges filed. Again, this is another example where they get away with state violence, and you know, they want to come and lecture China and Iran and Syria about human rights. Look at your own shit. Like, it's not just talk. It's one thing if they would just say it, but they're actually, instead of, you know, fixing their own country, they're taking money and then using it to come and destroy ours while they're being hypocrites. Like, you know, you can't win. You can't win with them, man. So DC is asking me about the civil war, thoughts on the civil war in Chad. Now see, this is a one realm where I'm completely I'm not well versed at all. I'm not well versed at all. So if you have any suggestions who I could bring on, not just for my sake, but for you guys as well, I'd be more than happy to do that. Because, you know, I want to talk a bit more about what's happening in you know, in Africa, because I mean, this is part of the shadow wars that they're running now, right? Just under the sub-Saharan region, and you know, and I mean, if you look at the United States right now in Africa, I'm trying to remember the exact number. I think they have 50 bases. Excuse me, rather bases in 50 different countries, right? So I mean, it's okay. Obviously, you know, it's I'm also thinking about the war in Libya, what that did, because this is just like Iraq, it's just like Syria. The U.S. comes in and they destabilize the country, and then you have terrorism spilling over into the rest of the region But again, I mean, Chad is its own thing on top of that. So again, if you have any suggestions who I could bring on, I'd be more than happy to, because we don't cover that enough at all. We don't cover that enough at all. All right, hold on. I'm making sure I didn't miss anybody. Give me a second, because we also got the good people watching on Rockfin. Thank you for that. Kim Martin sent a tip. Thank you very much for that, Kim. I appreciate it. You're very kind. So, wow, we also got a very generous donation on Cash App. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. This is from Nishama. Am I saying that correctly? And I really appreciate that. You're very kind. Thank you so much. And I also got a message over here from Jonathan. So thank you, Richard. My bad tuning in late. Keep up the excellent real journalism and critical thinking. Of course, my pleasure, and no worries. You can watch the stream again on replays. No worries at all. Hunter sent a tip on Rockfin. Hunter says, much love, friend. Thank you. Very kind of you. I appreciate that. And much love to you guys as well. Again, I'm just scanning everywhere because I know that I told you guys I would read you the super chat at the end, so I'm hoping I didn't miss anyone. All right. So yeah, with that said, again, I'm just going to remind you to go sign up on Substack and Rockfin because it's absolutely free and there's no censorship bullshit. That's a big one for me because, I mean, just today we talked about Israel, we talked about the OPCW. I mean, dude, you already know what the YouTube algorithm thinks of that. And I hate worrying about that crap. It's again, I know this is, you know, it's a real thing. I mean, it's happened to me before where they demonetize a channel, and there are other lefties right now getting their channel demonetized. And I know I keep repeating this every stream, but it's really important to build that up. So yeah, if you haven't made an account, definitely go make one. It's hold on, I'm trying to pull it up for you. There we go. Wonderful ad boy. So ROKFIN.com, rockfin.com. Again, the account is free. All of the videos are on there. I'm live streaming on there right now. So it's just like YouTube. Everything is there. Again, you know, they're still working on, by the way, I asked about this because you guys told me to. So the Android app is coming very, very, very soon. And they're also going to do the Apple, the iPad and the Apple Play, I think it's called. So, or AirPlay, excuse me. And yeah, they're going to get all that set up soon. But, you know, basically, the web version works just fine, so make an account there. And it's not just me, right? You can see on the screen all these other lefty channels that you guys probably watch, so they're on there as well. And yeah, it's really worth it. What else? Oh yeah, Substack. So again, I'm publishing articles on there, substack.com, Substack. You got a bunch of people that are doing their stuff over there now. It's cool. It's cool. And I've been publishing, you know, just articles, dude. I like writing. That's it. That's all it is. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. So anyway, I'm really grateful for you guys tuning in. And if you want to support the show, please do. You can do that on Venmo or Cash App or PayPal. And again, I thank every one of you for all your donations. Thank you so much. And yeah, you know, there's all the merch and the stuff. I'm just gonna leave the links below. You know the thing. Right, you know the thing. Again, I don't like spending so much time plugging the show, but yeah, it's important. We got to keep indie journalism going. So I got a super chat over here from DC. DC says, hold on, I'm trying to pull it up for you. So DC says, African diaspora news and home team history on YouTube are two knowledgeable sources on both history and current events on the African continent. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because like I said, I want to bring on someone who's actually knowledgeable on Chad and more well-versed than me. So thank you for that. Duly noted. And Shadowban says, thank you for streaming earlier today. I know, actually, I was you know, I was reporting on the thing in occupied Palestine, and, you know, I was like, okay, let's go live afterwards. So that's it, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much. Share the video, whatever. Just help me fight the algorithm. And yeah, Thanks so much for tuning in and supporting the show. Bislamu, ma'asalame. Bye-bye. I feel so bad leaving. There's like over 400, 500 people watching. But alas, let's leave it on a good note. Take care.